This is a follow-up to last night's class when there were a couple of us talking about using variables to chart some aspect of your character's character, right? So whether that be like morale or knowledge or something like that in a game. And I think it's pretty easy to do that. We'll do that with a variable. So I'm in Twine here, and I'm just going to start a new story. So I hit the plus button. We'll call this a morality tale. So we're going to create that. So we're on our first passage here. And from this first passage, what we're going to want to do is we'll rename this our start area. So this is our starting passage, and in the body of this is where we're going to. So typically, what you'll do with variables is start them at the very beginning of the game. So, and the simplest way to do that is to just put them on the front page. Or sorry, not the front page, but the first passage. So we're going to do that. Oops, I don't know why that didn't hit OK. There it goes. Start. So now we're going to set our first variable. So we're going to use a parenthetical, right? So that's the beginning of our telling the computer that we're about to put some code in here. And then we're going to set the variable. So we're setting it, and then set is always followed by a colon, and then we're going to name a variable. All variables begin with a $sign, so we'll start with that $sign like that. And in this case, let's say we're going to chart our morality, so we're going to call it morality like that. So we have set a variable called morality. We're then going to tell the computer what to set it to initially. So we're saying 2, so we're setting morality 2. And in this case, you can make up any number that you'd like. I'm going to set my character's morality to 100. And then we're going to close that the piece of code, right? So we're closing that function is what that would be called. So we now have a variable set, and you can kind of play with this in two ways, right? So right now the player has no idea when they're playing the game that a variable has been set. There's nothing there that will tell them that. So maybe if I want to let them know, I could set up a kind of HUD for them, right? So I'm going to do that by starting again. This is another function, so we're going to open this up, and I'm going to say if, right, morality, oops, I have to spell that right, is greater than or equal to 100, right? And we're going to close that function. So we made an if statement. Then, right? So, and the then in Twine is implied. We don't have to type that in. But if something is, in this case, true, right? What we want it to do is print something so that the player knows where they are on the scale. So let's say that since this is morality, they are feeling very moral, right? And then we'll close that. And so in this case, when the player comes in here, right, they're going to start the game with 100 points of morality. If that morality is, and it is, equal to 100 or greater than 100, then the computer is going to type at the top of the screen, feeling very moral. We know where they're starting, but we could also do an else, right, like this, and close that, and then type in something else that the computer might type, feeling a bit sinful, right? So if they do fall below 100, what the computer will print out is just this simple statement that says feeling a bit sinful, right? So now we've set all of our variables for the morality check, or for the, I guess this would be a kind of morality scale, right? And we're going to start playing the game, or we're going to enter into the text of the game. So without being too detailed here, we'll just say we start our story of good and bad, and then we're going to have our player make a choice to do something good, right? So we just created a choice of do something good, and you can see here in the bottom that it opened a new passage, or created a new passage called do something good, right? And then we're also going to give our player the opportunity to do something bad, and when we do that, it should also create a new passage, and it did, right? And we're ready to kind of move on. So our first passage is done. Our bit of morality up here is set. What I would do at this point is I would take this whole piece right here and just copy it. So I did a copy and paste there, or a copy command there. And then for every passage that you are going to create afterwards, you're just going to paste that into the top, right? And then, so for this one here, we'll do the same thing. We're going to paste it into the top, right? Now, what we want to do is we want to change some of this around, right? So in this case, our player has done something good. So we're in the do something good passage. So let's say in this instance, what we want to do is, because they clicked on the doing good thing, let's make up something good that they did. You saved a kitten from a pond. Aw, aren't you nice, right? And for doing that, what we want to do is we want to reward the player for doing something good, right? So as they go from the start, where they made the choice to do something good, right, we want to make certain that they're being rewarded for that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slightly modify the morality scale, right? So in this case, we're going to say set the morality to, and now we want to change this just slightly, right? We're going to set it to it, and then because they did something good, right, we want to reward them, so we're going to add some points, right? So in this case, we're going to add 100 points. Everything else here can stay the same, right, because nothing here is changing. So when we play into this passage, what we should see is now our morality is going to increase to 200. The player won't see that increase to 200, but you, the developer, knows that that's happening, right? And what the player will see instead is, because we're over 100 points, right, it's just going to say feeling very moral at the top, and then it'll say you saved a kitten from a pond, and we can then come down and give another choice. In this case, let's say something like, I don't know, deed is done, like that, right? That starts a new passage called Deed is Done. And we'll work on that one in a second. So now we're going to go back up to our do something bad, right? So same basic idea as doing something good, but at this point, right, what we're going to do instead is we're going to drop down here. You see a kitten struggling in a pond and ignore it. You go about your day. Right. And because we've done something quite horrible, what we're going to do on this passage is set morality to it, right? And this time we're going to do it at a minus 100. So we're going to lose 100 points. Our player is going to be at 0 at this point in time. Right, and because they're at 0, what we should see here is feeling a bit sinful. And then you see a kitten struggling in a pond, ignore it and go about your day. Now, I think we could do something kind of fancy here. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap go about your day into 2 brackets like that, and we're going to send go about your day to deed is done. All right. And now you can see that do something bad, when we go about our day, when we click on go about our day, it's going to go down to deed is done, right? So now both of our choices, whether we've done something good or whether we've done something bad, is heading down towards deed is done. So now we're going to open that up, right? And what we're going to do is we are going to do another if statement, right? So we're going to do, let's say, if morality, right, is what we're using. Morality is greater than or equal to, what are we going to do? Is greater than or equal to, let's say, 125, right? It's going to print you win, being good is reward enough. All right, so we're going to set a win condition there. If our morality has gone over 125, right, we know it is because on the do something good, we're going to have a plus 100. So we started here with 100. We'll have a plus 100 for doing something good. When we get to this point, deed is done, right? We should have well over 125. So it will clear. When it clears, it will read this. The computer will read this, and it will print you win. Good, being good is reward enough. Then, if not, right, if we don't have enough, right, we can do the else again. So we're going to say, if it's anything other than that, right, then what it's going to do is it's going to say something like, your shit, you get nothing, loser, or right. And so when we get to this point, what we'll see is a your shit, you get nothing, loser. So if we play something like this, I guess you could also then, right, you could probably do something like this to try again, and then we'll wrap that try again into its choices, right? So we'll need 3, and then we're going to pipe that back up to start, and then we'll need 2 more here. Oops, 2 more like that, right? So what I did there is, if we are on the losing side, right? So if we have less than 125 points of morality, then the computer is going to print your shit, you get nothing, loser, and then we're going to link back up to the start and give the person an opportunity to try again, right? And you can see that that did that when the arrow is now pointing back up to start. The only way you'll see that reload screen, right, or the try again, is if you don't have 125 points. So we know it's going to work because we can see that the arrows are all doing the thing that they're meant to do, but let's test it anyway, and I'll see if you can see this in the screenshot. So we're going to start up here. We're going to test from here. Right, so you can see that it's printed feeling very moral because we started with 100 points. You can also see that down in here in the debug window. The debug window won't play in your final game, but it does show up so that you can see what's happening in the game. So we start our story of good and bad. So if we do something good, we're going to save the kitten, right? So we click on do something good. We're still feeling very moral. We saved a kitten from the pond. You can see that our value went up by the 100 points that we set it to, right? And we only have one choice, and that is you win, being good is reward enough, right? And so we can go back to the beginning. So we're feeling very moral. You can see that the variable reset to 100. If this time we do something bad, you're feeling a bit sinful, so we know, right, that because we ignored the struggling kitten, our morality is now down to 0. We can go about our day, which is going to take us to the deed is done, right? So we hit go about our day, and you can see that rather than telling us we're a winner, it tells us that we're a shit, you get nothing, and that we can try again. So if we hit the try again button, it should take us back to the beginning of the game. Right, and you can start the game over again. You can see down here that the number was reset to 100. So now, I mean, this is a really simple game, I understand that, but in any step along the way, if you wanted to add something else, right, all you're doing is just calling up your, right, so on every passage, you don't have to, right, you can put this into every passage, you can set your variable in every passage, but you don't have to, right? So let's say that in the do something bad one, go about your day, or they can also instead, let's say, oh shit, I'm not that kind of person, right? And then we're going to send them to something called, let's call it just save kitten. Right, so we'll call it save kitten, and then we'll double click there. So now you can see there's another option here, right, to save the kitten. So we'll double click on this. So we're going to need to take our variable on this one, right? So we're going to copy that over. We're going to come into our save the kitten passage. We're going to paste that in. And in this case, right, again, they have decided that rather than let the kitten go, they're going to save said kitten. So what we're going to do here instead is set our morality to it. And again, in this instance, right, plus 100, like that, right, which would not give us enough. So we'll set it to plus 125 that way, right? And then we write a little bit of in our passage, and we'll make that you jump into the pond rescuing the kitten. And I'm making this a link, right? So that I can take it to deed is done. I'm going to close that. You jump into the pond rescuing the kitten. And now that the deed is done, so it's going to go over to deed is done. And because we have 125 points again, right, we should get the win condition. So let's test that. We'll go back up to start. We'll do a test from here. Right. So in this case, we're going to do something bad. Right. So we're starting our story and we're going to do something bad. You can see that our number was reduced to 0 because we saw it, and we can go about our day. I need to add a space there, but you can see the idea, right? So we can either go about our day, or you can, right, oh shit, I'm not that kind of person. We know that if we go about our day, it's going to take us to deed is done and we're going to lose. So this time, let's say, oh shit, I'm not that kind of person. And it's going to go to the pond, right? You're going to jump into the pond rescuing the kitten. You can see that our points went up because the feeling very moral went up. But you can also see that the value is now set to 125. And now when we rescue that kitten, right, we win. If we didn't, right, if we just go about our day, right, we are a loser and we get the chance to try again. So we have tested a morality, right? And so you can, anywhere that you want to create a passage where the morality is going up or down, you're just going to set that morality to whatever it is at that moment. And that's the important thing, right? You always want to set it to it, whatever is carrying over in memory, to a new value that you've decided on or created. And then, right, this section here isn't necessary, right? This whole game will work. Here, let me show you. The whole game will work if we take out, this is just like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. This is just like a little HUD that would tell your player what they're experiencing. But if we take out the if-else's here, all right, we'll do that there. We'll take it out of here as well. So we're taking away the visual cues that good and bad are happening, right? And come out in here. This one, we need the if-else, right? Because the conditional here is telling the computer whether or not we're going to win or lose. So we're leaving that if-else there. But like on this one, all this if and else is doing is printing something based on the status of that variable. So we'll pull that out like that. So now we have no HUD, but the game will still function the same way. So if we go back up to start and we test from that start, right? So what you don't have is a visual cue of your morality at this point, right? In the background, you can see what the computer is doing. It did set that value to 100. So in this case, let's say we're going to do something good. We saved a kitten from a pond. The deed is done. You win. Yay. Excuse me. All right. Or we start the story again, and we're going to do something bad. If we stick to our guns about the day, right, we're going to go about our day. We're shit. We're a loser. We do. And you can see that the numbers are changing down here. So we're going to try again. right? This time we're going to do something bad, but we're going to change our mind, right? And when we do, we're going to rescue said kitten, and we get the win condition again, primarily because the number has gone up to 125, right? I hope that makes sense, and I hope it helps. You can remember that you can set that variable to be anything that you want. It could be knowledge, it could be morality, it could be right, a collection of like good deeds. It could be a reward for reading various parts of the game. So if, as your player's moving through the game, if they go too quickly through it and they're skipping some information, you're not rewarding them for having gone to that, right? So if, in this case, if it wasn't morality, let's say that you want them to do a much longer route, right? You could set up a bunch of choices, and if they make the choice to read more, right, on each of the passages where they're reading more, you just set a variable to pluses, right? So you're going to give them more points for having done more in your game, so that when they get to some end point, like the deed is done here, right, if they've met a certain point limit, then you can tell them that they've done enough. If they haven't met that point limit, right, then you can tell them that they need to go back to one of the passages where they screwed up or they didn't read something. Right. Again, I can't, it's hard to kind of balance, or I can show you how to do the variable, but it's kind of up to you to make use of that variable in your kind of narrative form. So I hope this helps, and I hope it makes sense.